The amount of joy that Sid's life gives me is hard to put into words, but leave it to another episode of The Eminence and Shadow. Here I was thinking, because typically when you see the same scenes that you saw in the prior episode, that's just them doing a little recap and then they kick into the opening. Instead, what Shadow decided to do was they showed it from his perspective, and a scene that was, you know, if you really look at last week's scene, it's kind of a shocking, dramatic, holy shit, characters are about to get killed scene. And yes, our boy does jump in front of a giant slash and seemingly gets himself killed, but all things considered, you wouldn't say that's a funny scene in typical senses. But when you hear it from his perspective and how giddy he is, everyone and their mother is shaking in their boots. They're terrified. They're, oh shit, there's a terrorist attack. No one's excited about that. And then there's Sid. There's literally scenes where he's smiling like a giddy schoolgirl and everyone else is blurred out, but you can see how frightened they are. The dude's an absolute menace. He is so fixated on basically being perceived as the ultimate background character, despite everything he does making him the most main character ever. So in his world, everyone thinks he's nothing, and then he can go play Shadow in the distance, kill terrorists, have fun, and no one's gonna know the difference. But in reality, we all know, no, Sid, no, you poor delusional bastard. You, despite thinking everything you do is a background character motive, is the most main character syndrome out there. And yes, you still get to play Shadow, and you still get to do your crazy ass shit where you casually have fun killing terrorists, but at the same time, you are not the background character. These girls are not the main character of the arc. The most you can say, they are the main supporting character of an arc, but you will always be the main character, you delusional but lovable bastard. Now, there's a full live reaction available on my Patreon if you're interested, of course, but let's talk about this one, because what I'm liking about the past couple of episodes is they're not super explosive, they're not really that overdramatic in typical senses that we've come to expect from this show. It's overdramatic if you compare it to most anime, but that's part of the style and charm of this show. But in terms of Eminence and Shadow, it's pretty tame the past couple of episodes compared to some of the atomic shit that we've seen. But what I like about it is we're really getting to see where this man will go in basically life or death situations, right? Because a terrorist group that is basically acting like Shadow Garden, coming in, sealing off magic, and killing anyone who gets in their way. It's a pretty serious arc in any other show. But because we're following someone like Sid, who can casually just hit his chest a few times, kickstart his heart. The dude literally has a ridiculous amount of ways that he can die as a background character. But here's the thing with that, as impressive as it is that he was able to save himself, heal himself up, kickstart everything, you did not die a background character life, my friend. You literally are just signifying that you are without a doubt the one in the driver's seat. But he is so oblivious to it, and that's part of the charm of the show. And I love the fact that he went from basically, because you had that whole last week where he died like a dozen times before the referee basically was like, hey, all right, you know, you got to get out of here before you're actually dead, my boy. And the knight, who basically apparently should be undefeated or not fazed by most people, now has most likely fallen in love with Sid, and his harem has grown ever so more. But I love the fact for Sid, that's just him saying, well, the first death has to be a background character, so therefore he needs to be the one. It's not about saving a life, it's not about being a noble knight in shining armor, it's about, I am the background character, damn it. You have to see me as the background character, damn it. And this story is awesome, so I get to die by their hand, sort of a thing. When in reality, all he did was basically make himself look cool in the eyes of everyone else, saving a precious young girl, and then in return, she's like, he must love me, and this is why he was so, you know, hungry in the duel there to continue on for my sake. It's just, you love the ridiculous shit that you see in this show, and then to just see him, like, throughout the episode where I love how he's so flashy, right? Like, everything about him is about looking the coolest and being the coolest from his perspective. From my perspective, half of what he does is cringy as shit. The other half is actually pretty cool. And I love how rather than going over dramatic with like a giant bow that he snipes, no, he's a chuny, let's be honest. So he's gonna have a little handgun that he's gonna shoot arrows with, and he's sniping fools. And the fact that terrorists or not, the smile, the excitement, the enjoyment that he has killing people, evil or not, he's a psychopath, man. And that's why we love him, because he is just an absolute lunatic. And I love how, I think this is one of the best Sid moments. So, Sid doesn't know a lot about what's going on in this world. He's accidentally discovered cults. His entire Shadow Garden thinks he's a mad genius who's 20,000 steps ahead of everyone else. And then you have this girl who, most of the time that has bumped into Sid, he's been covered in blood, which is kind of hilarious. And she's going on about how we can break the seal, we can do all this, I've been doing my homework. And then, because he's having this conversation with one of his companions here, who's ready to kill her fiance, and goddamn, my boy, you need to run if your fiance is already dropping daggers ready to slit your throat when you're not looking. But he's going through the cabinet for a couple of minutes, and then he turns to her and he's like, hey, do you know where this, and this is? He didn't even know what he was looking for. He was just making himself look busy because he didn't know shit what he was looking for. Gets a whole box of goodies, and Cash is like, yeah, we're gonna go break the seal. And she's all like, what the hell? Like, this is some intense research. You must have been doing some planning in the background. He gets credit for so much shit that either he didn't come up with or he accidentally discovered. And the fact that he's continuing to look like the biggest of brains when really all he's doing is he's trying in his best to look like a background character, so when shit hits the fan, he can do some edgy shit in the distance. He can buy a Chuny room, dress it up, pretend like he's criticizing their wardrobes when his isn't much better. And for him, it's all about just being the coolest killer ever. And I love how he just doesn't recognize that, my boy, you are not a background character. You are the most main character syndrome ever. But I love it because for Sid, it's all about pretending to be a background character. We know the main characters in the show all think he is, well, actually the most important. But for him, it's like, haha, now I can go in the shadows and be a cool guy and casually kill terrorists. All I can say is it's no wonder Chuck Kun got him. It really isn't, let's be honest. It wasn't a freak accident, the dude's just crazy, and the fact that he could have easily actually died with the whole heart thing, he actually admits that one wrong move and he would have been dead for good. He went to that extreme just because he wanted to be the background character death, and his reason of how he survived was basically just, oh, I got lucky. The dude is a lunatic, but I love it. And I love how an episode that doesn't need to be that explosive, like, yeah, there's a lot of death, but if you compare, I think, some of the bigger moments in the show, it's smaller in comparison to those, but it's still just as entertaining as any of the past episodes. And honestly, some of the characters that actually ended up dead, I was surprised by, and the ones who got to live, I was like, god damn, I thought it would be a little reverse. Though I will say, the dude with the two swords, I mean, immediately I knew he was gonna have a hilarious death, because anytime you see a character hold swords like that, there's very rarely you'll see the Levi Ackerman of a show where, holding the swords like that actually works in their favor. And just to see him go from capturing himself in this bulb to then just the palm to the face, the reverse Spider-Man instead of a romantic MJ kiss, it's Sid's kiss of death. There's some funny shit, and it seems like we're building up to a night fight, which, I mean, I'm excited for because it's a cool character design, but I still expect everything to be pretty brutal for their side, and Sid to casually be the quote-unquote background character who, in the shadows, becomes the main character of his story. But he loves the story. Gotta give it to him. He's enjoying life, even if it's as twisted as it is, right? But either way, leave another episode with a grin on my face and excited to see the adventures of Sid next week. So thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. You can also see the live reaction, like I mentioned, over on the Patreon. There's other fun perks like video shoutouts, like a few are gonna get today. So we got Edre Zahari, Akamana Nikita, and Ruben Garcia. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.